Welcome to the Health Evolution Collective. Today, we are chatting to the awesome Helen Marshall, who is the founder of Primal Alternative. Thank you for being here today, Helen.
You're so welcome. Thanks, Tracy. I've just realised that sitting here with these two lights looks like Minnie Mouse. I just realised.
I love it. It looks real. That's all we are. Now I'm going to think about that the whole time.
Yeah, I know, me too.
Oh, dear. Well, to people who may not know who you are, which I find impossible because you are just awesome, and I've obviously talked to you before on my podcast, and you were a part of the recent summit, and which was fantastic, so thank you. But a little bit around, I guess, what made you start Primal Alternative, and what is your mission in life as we speak?
Cool. All right. Well, in a nutshell, I've always tried to be healthy. Like since the age of 14, I heard the message that fat was bad for you and was going to kill you. So I stopped eating fat. And then, so for 25 years, stuck to the low fat way of life. It's hard to say that now, isn't it? Low fat way of life. And by the time I was age 38, I had all sorts of physical, mental, and emotional health problems. Nothing that doctors could, there was nothing wrong with me. I had a bit of IBS, but there wasn't any drugs or treatment for that. So just get on with your life, basically. But, I couldn't poo. I was doing like 3 tiny poos a week. I know that we all love talking about poo, so I'm not even going to say it, TMI, because I know everyone will be like, oh, that's terrible. And I know most people have either got constipation or they've got diarrhea. It's like, this is wrong either way. Like, it's not meant to be like that. I couldn't sleep. So I'd be absolutely wired and exhausted, but I couldn't sleep on a night, get into bed, like nothing was happening. And then I'd literally keel over at lunchtime the next day and just have a zombie sleep for 3 hours, which I'm really glad I did with hindsight, because I think that's kind of what saved me. Yeah, and lots of, obviously, when you're feeling like that and you're feeling just so toxic and wired all the time, I was hyper stressed, very depressed, and very overwhelmed. I couldn't really deal with much more than the washing and what we're going to have for dinner. And that was about it. So my world got really small, and I really thought I was dying of something horrible because I felt so crappy. And the outcome of that felt like a welcome relief, to be honest. It was a horrible place, and I know that many people have been or are in that place, and I was able to come out of that black hole with real food. And it's not that I came from a junk food takeaway background. We made everything from scratch, but it was all food pyramid food. So there was a lot of cereals, a lot of pasta, a lot of bread, meat. We ate organic veggies, but basically too many grains and sugar in the diet, which, as we know, we've been following your glucose monitoring, N=1. Like, it's just a cycle of this. And when your glucose and insulin is up and down all day, it just wrecks you. I was nauseous all the time, felt sick all the time. I had to just get some food down just to take that sick feeling away. And it's just not a great place to be. So when I came out of that space, just by ditching grains, ditching processed industrial seed oils like canola, and swapping to, the animal fats and the ghees and the coconut oils and the butter, macadamia oils, avocado oils, that kind of thing. And ditching sugar, which comes anyway pretty much once you've got rid of the grains. It was such a transformation that I knew I just had to, there was other women feeling like this, and I knew I just had to get out and help them too. So going back in my career history, I was a personal trainer and a gym instructor. And so I preached the low-fat message: calories in, calories out, move more, eat less. And I was like, oh shit, I need to kind of like help, remedy that. And I was coming from a good place then. It was like, that's all I knew. And when you know better, you can do better. So I started health coaching people around a primal lifestyle. So it wasn't just the food, it was also about reducing toxic load, and in terms of your relationships, your job, where you work, getting everything aligned with what your values are, prioritizing sleep, because suddenly I was sleeping, not like a baby. Babies don't sleep very well. That's a joke. Sleeping like a husband, right? They sleep, right? They just go to bed, they're like that. Night, babe. And you're like, how do you do that? How do you just go to sleep?
It's
I've got to
true.
like think. I know, I'm going to like think for at least half an hour, process the day, work out what's happening tomorrow, what we're having for dinner tomorrow, you know, all of those things. So prioritizing sleep, time in nature, you know, I've just come from lying in the sun for half an hour before I spoke to you. All those sorts of things to really, those are the things, like those are the, you know, nature's doctors, all those things, anything, you know, once you've got all those things humming, you're pretty robust, you're thriving, life flows. There's this lightness around you, like there's none of that heavy, what's the point, I feel like shit, you know, that's a thing of the past. So when I was health coaching, my clients were getting amazing results, right, as anyone does pretty much when you adopt this you know, modern indigenous lifestyle, I guess. But they were missing some of their staples from the food pyramid days, like bread and pizza and waffles. And you sort of get bored of bacon and eggs for breakfast every day. Like, oh, can't I just have a piece of toast? Or, waffles, for example, or pancakes, or and you know, fun like family friendly nights like lasagna night, or pizzas, a pizza night, taco night, fajitas, all of those things that you need some kind of like grainy thing to wrap it all up with, right? So I'd already like made a few, because we were feeling the same, right? And my husband said, oh, we're not doing this weird thing without cookies. So I'd already made a few recipes that we were eating, you know, our new bread, our cookies and that kind of thing. And so I just said to my clients, well, you know, do you want me to make some stuff for you? Because if that's going to make life easier for you. And like, it wasn't this overnight success where I had like $700 worth of orders. There was like literally 3 people said, well, I'll buy a loaf of bread off you. And I charged it completely at the wrong price, you know, like I sold it less than cost, you know, like it cost me to make it and sell it for them. But I knew there was something there, and I loved baking. I'm not the best baker. In fact, conventional baking, I had so many fails. I always love it around the time of my kids' birthdays, because Facebook Memories always brings up all of these cakes that I've made in the past that failed, you know, like it's just disaster cakes. So like, I'm no baker, I'm no chef, haven't got a catering background. But when you're just baking with like paleo ingredients, it doesn't take, you know, you don't need to prove, you don't need to cream, you just chuck it all in and chuck it in the oven. So it was a really cool business model that I could do it from home in my kitchen. And I could do some health coaching as well, and I could be there for my kids. I could get the washing done, get the dinner done, hang out with my friends, do all the things I wanted to do, and have this little business helping others as well. So it was beautiful. And after about 18 months of doing that, I literally had a divine nudge and a divine sort of drop in of inspiration that said, look, there's other people who like baking and they're into health as well. Why don't you share with them what you've learnt and all of your trade secrets so they can do it too? And I was like, oh my goodness, really? And I just thought, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I've never licensed the business model before. It sounds really scary. You know, I spoke to some male businessmen who kind of laughed at me as if it was a stupid idea. But I decided I was going to give it a crack anyway. What did I have to lose? So I did. And that, you know, we're like coming up to 4 years since so it was August 2016 when I had that idea. And I just had to basically get my shit out the way. And all of the things that I didn't think I was good enough. You know, I've not got the right body. I don't have the right accent. I'm not a man. I don't know anything about business. I don't have enough money. I don't have a big enough audience. I don't know how to do social media. All of those things that you think, oh, not me. Oh, I couldn't do that. Had to get all of that shiz out of the way. And here we are, you know, like 3.5 years since I've launched the license nationally and internationally. and over 160 people have bought a license and started their own home businesses. I know, and that's mostly in Australia because that's obviously where I am and that's where my heart is, but also in New Zealand and the States and the UK. So, wow.
Amazing.
Pretty cool.
Wow. Yes, very cool. And I love all of that, but particularly the divine drop-in. I love the divine drop-in because how often does it happen and we just ignore it, or we, as you say, make all these little, listen to all the little conversations that come up about why we can't do it. But I love that you had that and you took it, and it wasn't like, as you said, it was an overnight success and it wasn't easy. I mean, you had to work through all this stuff, but look what's possible. And that's what I'd really love you to talk a little bit more around, when it comes to reclaiming our life and our health, with starting with real food. So many people still don't believe the whole thing around food affecting your mood. Well, what do you think about that? And what can you talk, if someone else is sitting there listening to this thinking, I could never do that or whatever, let's talk, let's hear more of what you think about that.
Yeah, well, if you really do think food doesn't affect your mood, then I would just say just do a little experiment of 21 days where you take out grains, seed oils and sugar and see how you feel. Like, that's what I did. I was like, right, I'm just going to do this for a little bit of time and then I'll go back to my healthy whole grain, low fat diet. Like, I just do this to fix it and then I go back, right? And for the first 5 or 6 days, I felt worse than ever because I didn't realize I didn't have a health coach talking me through it, but I was having like the detox from hell because finally I'd stopped. Gluten is my kryptonite, and I'd stopped, filling my body with gluten, which, I'd been eating, got pictures of me like 3 months old eating bread, like my mum just trying to fill me up so I can sleep more. And, like it just, like, with all the goodwill in the world, but that was a long time, 38 years of eating gluten and your body's never had a break from it, right? So after that initial detox, I really kind of popped out on the other side in this different paradigm. Like, it was just next level. Like the colors of the plants was more vivid and music sounded more amazing and food tasted just incredible. Like, how much better does food taste when it's got fat in it? I mean, it's delicious. It's so yummy. Butter and oil. I hadn't eaten avocado for decades because it was too fatty. I mean, what a waste. What a waste of 25 years of just eating, well, it was just a lot of fiber basically because I wasn't absorbing any of the goodness from it without the fat, as we know now. So if you don't believe it, don't knock it till you've tried it. Like, I was an absolute skeptic because I fully believed in the food pyramid. Why would the government tell us to eat this if this wasn't the way to do it? But now, like, how far am I along in my journey? Like 7 years of eating like that. Wow. And it's just, it just evolves. You don't, like, it's not like you just eat this way and then like, I'm fixed, like other health challenges come along the way. And then it's always like it's a work in progress, right? As with anything it's not like, right, I've worked out how to manage stress. I'm not stressed anymore. That's it. But you've got to keep working on your stress. It's not like one night's sleep fixes your whole sleep thing, right? You've got to work in progress. It's all very cumulative. So with the food, it's always a case of tweaking and refining. I've just recently done a bit of a liver detox and because I'm now perimenopausal and having all the joys of perimenopausal women do, with a little bit of low cortisol, a little bit excess estrogen. So just working on some stuff to help with that. Just tried a low FODMAP protocol just to see what it's like, and it's really helped me. And just things like it's always, you're always learning. And I think once you close yourself off and say, no, this is it, then you stop growing. We've always got to be curious and open to trying new things. So hopefully that answers the question without going too
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I think you're right. I mean, absolutely, we've got to be curious. The minute we think we know, we stop searching or we stop being curious, and it is You know, my journey's so similar to yours. I can't, you know, I know every time we talk, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's like
me too.
Oh, yes. And I'm sure there's many women sitting there with a very similar journey as well. But I think, you know, it is a constant evolution, and we're human beings. We're not robots. I mean, you know, we're never going to do things perfectly all the time, and we're going to try different things, and things are going to change. And yes, I'm perimenopausal too. And wow, that's opening my world up to a whole lot of stuff I'd never really thought about before. So, you know, it's the excitement of being human, I guess, and don't be afraid of it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. So the next question I have for you, because I get this a lot, and I guess you probably do too in what you do, but one of the biggest barriers I see with women is their husbands and their kids not really being interested in going down the real food path with them. I wondered if you had any sort of tips on how you've dealt with that or how they could deal with it too.
Oh, my favorite topic. There's always fussy kids and dubious husbands. Like that's that I call it. I actually have them as categories: fussy kids and dubious husbands, right? Because everyone's like, oh, or partner, whichever way you go. Like there's always going to be someone that's dubious, like in your life. That, I'm not sure about that. You know, that you're cutting out a whole food group. Ooh, not so sure. But the reality is, when you look at a lot of family favorite meals, a lot of them are already primal or low carb, right? So you could easily tweak a lot of your sort of meat and veg kind of dinners, your bacon and eggs breakfast. Show me a family that's going to turn down a bacon and eggs breakfast. You know, like everybody loves that kind of food. So, and even things like when sausages is back on the menu and burgers back on the menu. I saw you doing yummy burgers for your family the other night. Like it's not hard to just feed your family that food, and don't tell them. Don't tell, like it's a guarantee. If you sit down and say, right, you lot, we're not eating that anymore. It's human nature. It's just human nature. We don't like deprivation. Humans don't like deprivation. And we all know it because we've all done a diet. Like we've all grown up during that era. We say, right, no chocolate. I'm not allowed to eat chocolate. And all they can think is chocolate, 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 chocolate. Like, and then, you know, by like usually you might make it through Monday, but probably like 8:30 on a Tuesday, you've already got half a packet of Tim Tams down the hatch. And it's just the way we go, right? So just no deprivation, because that's just lining you up for failure. Like I think the key is to add in the good stuff, crowd out the bad stuff, and no one will notice that suddenly you've stopped buying Helga's bread from the supermarket because they don't need it anymore, that kind of thing. And I think the other thing, like, and this is coming from a really heart-centered place, but we often use our family as an excuse for something we don't want to do. So I'll give you a bit more of an example on that. So maybe the thought of ditching bread and cereal is really overwhelming for you because, well, let's face it, that's what you've lived on up until this day. So it's really hard to make a big change like that, right? So we say, oh, well, I could do it, but, you know, my husband and my kids would never eat like that. But really, we're projecting our fear about this new way of life and blaming them, right? Which is it's a kind of victim archetype way to go about it, right? And if you recognize it in you, congratulations, you're normal, right? Because we all feel like that to a certain point. So my advice or my suggestion, I don't like to give advice, but my suggestion in that case is to focus on you. So just even if you're just doing it for you, if you just start to be the one who goes grain-free, who goes dairy-free, if that's what's going to work for you, whatever it is. And then whatever you do, just naturally kind of like this organic ripple effect into the whole of the family. And if you think about this as a lifetime thing, it's not like a 30-day program, you know, we're just going to change everything in 30 days. If you think like over the next 5 years, it would be really good if we could get these foods out of our diet and transition across. Or maybe even the next year seems doable. Just step by step, baby steps, one day at a time, one meal at a time. And like you mentioned before, Tracy, perfectionism, it is a myth. It doesn't exist. So stop striving for it, because I've seen a case with one of my health coaching clients where they were like, well, I want to buy your fructose, but it's got tapioca in it. And some tapiocas have got preservative 220 in them, so like a sulfite. So therefore, I'm not going to eat that bread, but I'm just going to keep buying my tip top white bread for the family. It's like, you're kind of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's like, unless it's perfect, they're not going to do it. And, I think if we're just looking for progress over perfection, because perfection, it doesn't exist. So we're just looking for progress, like baby steps, one step at a time is the best way to do it. And to keep the meals, family friendly, like things like bangers and veggies, and you can make all sorts of different mashes. If you don't want to eat potato, you can still do heaps of like a beautiful cauliflower and leek mash is super low carb and so much tastier than boring old white potatoes, right? Just in gravies made with broth and all these sorts of things that most families are going to love. And even if there's like a few variations around the table, like we've got 4 very different eaters in our house, and it's quite easy to tweak a dish. So for example, my kids, they want to have more carbs than me and my husband do. So just like, chop up some potato wedges and put them on the side of, salad and veggies, like salmon and veggies that we're having for dinner that night. It isn't hard to tweak it once you're ready to do it.
I love that. And definitely, taking it one step at a time. I think we can overwhelm ourselves so much that we just don't even know how to move forward. So I love that. And, look, it's been a 7-year evolution for me as well with my family. And, like it has just changed a lot over that time. And I think, it's all that comes back to is that, we're going to do the best we can, and I think every day we have that opportunity to just show up, and how we did it yesterday doesn't have to affect how we do it today. I just think that's really all we've got, and we can make the choices that's in front of us, and the best choice we've got that day. And will it always be the best choice? No, it won't be. But tomorrow is a new day, and that's great. Beautiful stuff. Really interested to have this conversation. I know you've talked about this with me before, but old school food shaming, and what's the deal with that? Because obviously with social media and Instagram, and there's a lot of perceived rules around what we can and can't eat. And when somebody eats or posts something that we don't agree with, we tend to judge them and shame them a little bit. But what's your take on all of that? And is it helpful in any way to do that?
Well, I've got a different form of food shame, which I'll talk about, but that's more of a thing that goes on in family houses. But talking about social media food shaming, I think there's less of it now, thank goodness. But in the beginning, sort of like, when I first started on my journey, it was very black and white. I didn't like the word paleo. Like I didn't call my business Paleo Alternative, thank goodness, because paleo is a bit of a has-been word now. But that's why I call it primal, because primal is so much more your version, what works for you. Like sometimes I've been dairy free, other times I haven't been dairy free. Sometimes I've drank alcohol, sometimes I haven't drank alcohol. So who says what the rules are? I say what the rules are, and that depends on how I'm feeling at that time and what's working for me and what's not, right? So I think this is all about finding the version of what works for you. And like I said before, you can have 4 different versions of what works in one family, and that's all right. We don't all have to do, my husband still drinks beer and gets pies from the Denmark bakery, but that's fine, right? Doesn't matter. It's fine, because that's his version of that, making it work for him. Okay. But when he comes home, he eats beautiful, healthy, low carb food and no pies. So the food shame that I'm talking about comes more from the messages that we unwillingly put onto our kids. And I think it comes from our parents and how we were raised, and then their parents and how they were raised, which was during the war, during the Depression, when food was scarce, when rations were around. There's a lot of emphasis on clearing your plate, finishing what's on your plate, and sort of shaming around portion sizes of things that we choose and when we choose to eat. And as a mother and as a human, I really want to empower people to listen to their body and eat when they're hungry. and to trust the message that the body's giving them. So, for example, if I'm on with dinner and my daughter comes out and she gets herself a snack, I'm not going to stop her because, dinner might be 20 minutes away. I'm not going to say, oh, just eat a piece of fruit, or don't eat now because I'm making something healthy that I want you to eat in 20 minutes time. I'm just going to be like, well, choose what you want, because our house is full of good food. We also have snacks. So we do have chips. We have got lollies. We've got crackers that the kid, like the best versions of what we can get, or my husband can get from the supermarket because he does the shopping. I don't personally eat them, but the kids like them, and they've got access to them, because I also don't want to be one of those families where you can't have any of that food here. And then as soon as I've seen kids who are completely banned from sugar, like they go to the restaurants and they're spooning the sugar out the bowl from the cafe, and it's just like, well, that's not good either. Like, what are we doing? Like, this is crazy. So food shame for me comes down to learning when to self-regulate, learning when you've had enough chips, or trusting your body that I don't want a piece of fruit, Mom. Like, I want to have this cheese that I've got out the fridge. Yeah, that's what I want. I want cheese. My body's saying cheese and you're saying fruit. I remember my mum saying it to me, just to eat some fruit. I don't want fruit. I want something more nutritious and fatty than that. I'm growing. I've had a full day at school, and I think I'm getting better at it, but it's definitely a work in progress with my husband, who for some reason has got some kind of story around there not being enough food for everybody. So don't eat all of that. Leave a little bit of that, save a bit of that. I'm like, eat all the blueberries. Like, seriously, don't just save 4 and let them go moldy in the fridge, like, just eat them all. Like, we are lucky enough to be able to afford to buy good food, and it's our priority. Like, when I look at our expenses, it's predominantly food. Like, that's our biggest expense. But that just, and you see all of these mums and these groups in Facebook, and they're like, I feed my family of 10 million children for only $100 a week. And I think, well, good on you, right? That's not me. My food budget's more like $400, maybe more a week on food. And that's okay. And if yours is that too, then that's okay, because that just simply represents where your values are. So hopefully that's answered the one on food shame. It's a big topic.
Yeah. It's a huge topic, and it's something that I see really does. It's challenging, and it's something that has to be addressed. I mean, I just look at my mum as a prime example. I mean, I think that held her back from, trying. Obviously, I've been in her ear for a long time about, sort of trying the real food, low carb way. And it did take her quite a few years before she was interested in doing it. And I think that was a big reason why. She grew up having to eat everything on her plate, and that her made up beliefs and thoughts around food were so strong that to, I guess, put aside everything she'd learned around that and just start listening to her body and maybe leave stuff on her plate, that was really, really hard for her to do. And of course I was brought up the same, so like I resonate exactly what you were saying with, I do say to my kids sometimes if they go, because I'm very similar to you, but I catch myself doing the don't eat that now. I'm cooking this and I want you to eat that, not that. But you're so right. If we don't let them go and let them have these experiences, they won't learn to trust their body. And I don't do it now, but it did take me a long time when they said to me, Mum, I'm full, for me to say that, okay, that's good. That's fine. It took me a long time to say that, not, well, just eat 5 more bits, or, well, you're not having anything else if you don't finish your plate, all that.
Yeah, that. Like, it's like there's this punishment, and that's the other thing. Then these people should be food shamed, but this punishment and reward with food is really dangerous. And the people that I'm talking about is not just your lovely people that are listening, but a lot in education and sports I'm seeing as well now, that instead of just being rewarded with some praise, like, oh, well done, you've done really well in this test, it's well done, here's a Freddo frog, or you came first in the race, here's a lolly snake. And it's like, well, it's just wiring the brain to for future overeating around successful things. And I think that as a culture, we need to find new ways to celebrate success, because in essence, that is a gratitude practice. So celebrating success every day, little things, amazing things that have happened in your day without going into a food coma or hangover. Like when you say, how are you going to celebrate? People are like, oh, I'm going to pop a bottle of champagne. And it's like, well, what else could you do to celebrate? That doesn't involve that, you know? And it's the same with our kids. And I think sometimes that, you know, just that praise or words of encouragement or recognition is what people want more than some shit food, you know? It's a really tricky one, but we learned the hard way with the eating, and I was the same as well. If you don't finish what's on your plate, you don't get dessert. That was, you know, so it's been a lot of unlearning for me. And then it's very hard as well when you become an adult to have some food and then think, right, now I need something sweet, when actually you don't. That takes a lot of unprogramming. So do you want your kids to go through that as well, you know? But when our son was 3, we were having a Sunday dinner with Yorkshire puddings. I'm from Yorkshire. Make the best Yorkies, even paleo Yorkies. I nailed it, right? They're so good. And he was eating his food, and we're saying, "Come on, just finish it. Otherwise, you know, no yogurt or whatever disgusting food was for his dessert." And he ate so much that he actually vomited. And we were like, "Oh my goodness!" And he said, "Too many Yorkies, Daddy." And he'd wanted to stop, and we'd forced him. I mean, is that not child abuse? Like, you know, I'm looking at, you know, we had good intentions, but looking back, it's just like, oh my goodness. So at the age of 3, we were teaching him how to override the hormonal signals from leptin, saying, satisfied, enough good food in this body, and stop. We're like, no, eat more, eat more, eat more. What are we doing? What do we do to our kids? You know, it's just so, you know, like, but I recognize it. And even like, you know, so if my daughter came and got that big wedge of cheese, my kids love carrot and cheese together. They eat that, and that's a great snack. Or finished off a thing of berries or whatever. Then quite often when I serve dinner, she'll fall asleep at the table. She's had a massive day. My kids get up early, and it's almost too late for her to eat a big meal then. So she's better off listening to her body, and so are we, essentially.
I love that. And the signals are so there. And I just think you're right. You know, we just teach them not to listen to it for a very young age. And of course, then you throw in sweets or chocolate or something when they've had a hard day or something bad's happened or they've fallen over or whatever. I mean, that was another thing I had to unlearn as well. I, you know, caught myself doing that with my older kids, and you have to be, well, first of all, you got to be aware that you're doing it and thinking about what you're creating to sort of undo all that. And it's no one's fault. I mean, that's just how it is and how it's been set up. But I think you have to see you can definitely change and unlearn a lot of that, because you're right. You're just teaching them to look to food for comfort when they don't need to look to food for comfort. They can find that within themselves or within somebody else, or, you know, not food. Because that's a really
that's it.
One.
It's a hard one to unlearn, because the kid that's grown up like that is going to be the adult who, you know, downs a bottle of wine or whatever after a hard day at work. Is that, and you know, we all struggle with those crutches. You know, coffee in the morning and wine to unwind. You know, like, is that what you want for your kids? Is that what you want for you? Like, it's a big one, and I think that a lot of the time we don't realize. We just think we're offering comfort at that moment, but really emotions just means energy in motion. And when you've had a shitty day, the key thing is just to feel like you've had a shitty day. It's all right. Like, I had a shitty day yesterday. I was like, oh, it's my first day back after a 3-week break. I was like, oh, what's the point? Oh, just don't feel like it. Oh, no, you know. And then I was like, oh, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? I'm like, no, let's just vibe on this shit day. So I was just saying, hey, I'm not feeling great. I'm not having the best day ever. And then you woke up today and like that, I'm back. Let's do it. You know, I'm like feeling really, because I just worked through it, you know, and didn't go off and drink a bottle of wine, or like scoff a whole bar of chocolate or whatever, because I think I'd still feel crap today if I did that.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And, you know, you're all going to have bad days. I love that too. And I've completely forgotten what I was going to say, so it doesn't matter. Just around there with the kids, often if they hurt themselves or, there we see them in pain, it's that we just hate it, and it's our pain that we're trying to fix by, giving stuff to them. So I just think, we don't have to project that. I think you mentioned that in the start in relation to something else, but we don't have to project it onto anybody. And, but be aware of it and just stop and just pause and just, you don't have to act on everything that comes up, and, you can let things pass. And I think if we don't start doing that, then nothing will change, because change only happens when we get insight, when we have awareness. And yeah, I love it. What a fantastic conversation. Darling, before I let you go, which is very soon, but just a quick wrap up on, I guess, you and I have talked about this before too. There's definitely a spiritual element in a lot of the journey that we've been on over the last, little while. I think as it starts with the food, and then of course it just leads to so many things. But what can you share around that for you? How has that looked for you? And yeah, where has it sort of taken you on this journey? Just all starting from, I guess, food.
Well, we've all got that, inner knowing, that whatever you call it, that sixth sense, that gut feeling. You say things like, I knew that was going to happen. I knew that was going to happen. We've all got it. Okay. So it's not like this, psychic power that's just reserved for women at, fairs with crystal balls and magic cards. Like, everybody's got it. It really is our sixth sense, and it's our power. And the thing that makes humans different to animals is that we can see something in the future that's not happening now. So all animals are very present. They don't have the frontal cortex, which is the part of the brain which can visualize something looking a certain way in the future that doesn't actually exist now. So everybody's got the power to create their own version of the future. And the most amazing thing is that it starts with just daydreaming, just visualizing. I spend at least half an hour a day, usually in a guided meditation, going through different areas of my life, so my health, my home, my marriage, my kids, my business, my finances, all of that kind of thing, and just visualizing how I'd like that to look, and really feeling as if that's happening now. And that's, like, I've always loved meditation. I've always trusted my instinct. But when I cleaned up my diet, it just became like this mainline to downloads from the universe, whether you call it God, the universe, source, whatever. It's the same thing, right? Without disrespecting anyone's beliefs. We've all got our own version of how we communicate, because at the end of the day, we are all the same thing. We are made of source. We're the same. We're nature. We're made of exactly the same things that the stars are, and the trees, and the grains of sand on the beach, which is like mind-blowing, but really cool when you think about it as well. Like, if you're having a bad day, there's nothing more than just like going, wow, we're never disconnected. We're always connected. And that's much easier to believe when life feels good and you're in flow and you're sleeping and you're pooing and, life's light and you feel good and you're not overwhelmed and depressed and you're riddled with anxiety and phobias. It's a lot easier to believe, like, when people are spouting about this stuff when you're feeling like shit. You're like, shut up, like, seriously, go away, positive woman. But it really is possible just by cleaning up what you're eating and spending more time in nature. I sometimes feel like the less layers in between my head and the sky, the easier it is to feel connected. So if you're inside and you're feeling disconnected, go outside, get your head outside, take your hat off even, and take your shoes off, and just feel like how you can be a channel with Father Sky and Mother Earth. Like, it really, it's incredible. And I think that the next sort of step for me was going on a course. I went on a course whole weekend, $500 course for someone to tell me I am psychic. She told everyone, we're all psychic. We're all psychic. We can all hear messages from our, higher good, inner wisdom, whatever you want to call it. And that we just need to practice listening to it and talking to it. And it's just like a muscle, like with anything. Like when you start anything new, it's a bit hard and bumpy at first. But once you start practicing it, then it becomes stronger. So that's what I did, literally talking to myself. and people will be laughing but going, oh good, not just me then. But and really just getting these downloads. Like we all do it, right? We all talk out loud to ourselves. Go for a nice walk in nature, ask questions. Like it's just too hard for me to work out. I don't know what to do. What shall I do? And just wait and see what kind of solutions come up. So 2 things: clean up your life, and 2, believe that you are intuitive and that you do have that intuitive intelligence, and dare to follow it, like dare to take those few steps. And that kind of like brings us full circle to where we started in the beginning, and we talked about sabotaging ourselves. But the saboteur archetype is a shadow archetype, but it's really helpful, and it's what keeps us safe. It's very basic, it's very primal, because anything that is new or different could be a threat to our lives. So we can use the saboteur archetype and really look at, feel into what are the worst things that could happen. What are the worst things that could happen if I do this and it goes wrong? Well, I might lose some money, or I might lose some friends, or I might lose some face. Am I willing to live with those worst case scenarios if if it does all go wrong? And the answer is usually yes. Obviously, if you're standing off a cliff and thinking, shall I jump off the cliff? And you're in a knowing's going, don't do it. That's too dangerous. That's a good thing. Like that's where the sabotage. Don't do that. That's dangerous. Listen to that one, right? But if you can like quantify and think, I'm not going to end up dead if I just give this business opportunity a go, if I give this health coaching journey a go, or if I do this live speaking gig, or whatever it is that you've been asked to do or got the opportunity to do. Yeah. So do it.
Beautiful. Do it. Do it. I love it. I love it. Well, wrap up for me by sharing with everyone how they can connect with you and what are the opportunities that you offer within Primal Alternative.
Love to. Thank you, Tracy. Well, you can find me everywhere as Primal Alternative. So on Facebook and Instagram, the website primalalternative.com. And on there, you'll be able to find all of our products if you want to become a customer and try the range. And if you're looking at having your own home business and you want to be a producer or a primalista, as we call them, then it's all on there as well. So primalalternative.com. I've also got a podcast called the Primal Alternative Podcast. If you want to hear me in conversation with real people with real stories about real food, then check that out. It's on the Wellness Couch.
Awesome. Well, thank you, darling. Always such a pleasure to chat to you. And I love your wisdom. I love your journey. And I love that you talk about it. And, we never know who we're touching when we speak about it. And I just think we just do it because we love it. So thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you, Tracy. And I'll catch up with you next week.
Yes. Exciting.